Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. And this one, I'll be recapping week one in the NFL. It was super exciting. We really finally got football back, so hopefully you guys all had a great weekend. I know I loved watching football this weekend. I'm just really glad it's back. Reminder to everybody, don't panic. Take a deep breath, regardless of what happened this weekend, whether you were the leading scorer in your league or the lowest scorer. It's a long season. There's a lot of things that are going to happen. If you dealt with injuries, if you had just really underwhelming weeks, understand that this is just week one. There's a long way to go, and there's a lot of things we can do to make our teams get better over the course of the season. So don't panic. Everything's going to be okay. Just make sure we keep at it and do everything we can to make our teams better over the course of the year. So I'll be doing these videos every single week. So normally like Tuesday morning, you guys will get this video, and then really same time as you'll get the waiver video as well. I'll put out both videos on Tuesday. On Wednesday and Friday, we'll go over starts and sits, and then you'll also get the trade video on Thursday, I believe, this year. Maybe I'll do trades on Wednesday. So we'll see how I check that out. But regardless, there's going to be a lot of videos every single week. Just make sure you subscribe. That way you don't miss any of it. And yeah, it's going to be a lot going forward. It's going to be fun to recap these games because I think we learned a lot, and hopefully you guys find this useful. So if I miss anything, let me know in the comments. Any questions you have, let me know there as well. And it should be a lot of fun. So yeah, let's get into it. So recapping the Ravens and the Chiefs game, starting things off with the Ravens. Lamar, he's going to be awesome if this offensive line continues to struggle. I know it seems like a bit of an oxymoron, but when you have these mobile quarterbacks with really bad offensive lines, they have to run a lot more. And we saw Lamar rush for over 100 yards on Thursday. I think we could see that happen a lot this season. I think Lamar could potentially put up a really monster season. I'll note the Chiefs have a much better defensive line than a lot of the other teams they'll face, so maybe it won't be as necessary, but just keep that in mind. Lamar could be in line for a massive year here. The running back situation in Baltimore could be annoying. We saw Derrick Henry actually get outsnapped by Justice Hill. It was a negative game script for most of the time for the Ravens, so I don't think we're going to see that happen all that often. The Ravens are a really good team. They're going to win a lot of games this year, so don't completely panic here with Derrick Henry, but in games where they're losing in passing down situations, Derrick Henry's not going to get the ball. He's not going to be on the field, so you need him to score touchdowns for him to pay off, and we probably knew that if we're being honest with ourselves going into the season. I still think he could score 20 touchdowns this year, so I'm not panicking at all, but just understand that he's going to be really game script dependent. It's something we got to keep in mind, but he's been that way his whole career. Outside of that, for the Ravens, Zay Flowers, he's going to be a flex play. They manufacture touches for him. He's still used really close to the line of scrimmage. Doesn't feel like he really has that ceiling unless he manages to pop a screen or something. Good player. I don't mind having him. He's a fine wide receiver 3 for me, but I don't think we're going to see that breakout this season. The big question here is going to be Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. Obviously, Isaiah Likely really just put on a clinic this last week. He looks like he's going to be a lock to probably be a top 12 tight end this season. He's someone that I do think should be a really popular waiver ad. But don't panic about Mark Andrews either. He still ran more routes, was on the field more than Isaiah Likely. Just had to help block a lot against this Chiefs defensive front, and the Chiefs doubled or triple teamed him on like every single play. They really just made an effort to keep Andrews out of the box score here, and it worked. It won them the game, and I think there are better days ahead for Mark Andrews, but let's just don't panic and overreact to this week. Every tight end sucked this week. For the Chiefs, looks like more of the same for Mahomes. They're going to be a really good defense. They're going to be able to run the ball, throw the ball close to the line of scrimmage, and I don't think you're going to see another 5,000 yard, 50 touchdown season out of Mahomes this season. I think he's going to be a lot closer to that quarterback 10 like he was last season than the quarterback 1 like a lot of people were drafting him to be. I don't own a lot of him. I know a lot of you guys don't either. I'm not trying to toot my own horn or victory lap at all after 1 week. There's still a long way to go, and I could be wrong. The pass catchers did look fantastic, and Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. So maybe there's more room for upside here for Mahomes, but I don't necessarily know if that's going to work out this season. Pacheco, he's a workhorse. He was on the field pretty much the entire game, came off a couple times pretty much just to throw up. He's a really great player. He's going to have really great games going forward. Remember, this is a really elite Ravens defense. Dude's still good for fantasy. Rashee Rice is going to be a monster. They're going to manufacture touches for him, so you got to be super excited about him. Xavier Worthy, great flex option going forward. I don't think he's going to be a reliable weekly option, but someone that's going to have some boomer bust weeks and that you want to have on your roster. And then Travis Kelce might disappoint. I don't think he's necessary to the offense. They're going to look to limit his snaps and touches over the course of the year to keep him healthy, and I think he might be a bit of a letdown for fantasy this season. Next, we've got the Packers and the Eagles. Starting things off with the Packers, Josh Jacobs, he's a workhorse, but he really didn't look all that great to me. He had 16 carries for 81 yards, I believe. Nothing looked special for me out of Josh Jacobs there, but he is a good enough player. He's got a really secure role here. I think he'll be a solid high-end running back 2 for us this year. The Packers looked like they were going to have a really fun offense, really great passing game. It was super explosive watching Jaden Reed. Unfortunately, at the end of the game, we had an injury to Jordan Love. Sounds like he's considered week to week, but I bet he'll miss probably 2 to 3 weeks, if not more, here with an MCL sprain. So until then, I don't know that I really want to start any Packer other than Josh Jacobs. Jaden Reed is the wide receiver that I want to own, I think. He's the guy that will manufacture touches for, but it's not a lock here. It's going to be rough with this offense with Mason Malik Willis at quarterback. So not super excited about that until Jordan Love is back, but I think they're going to be fine once Love returns. For the Eagles, Saquon's going to be a monster. Being used a ton. He's getting goal line work. We saw him score 3 touchdowns this week. That's obviously not going to happen every single week, but he's an elite player on an elite offense now with an elite offensive line. He's getting goal line touches. I think he's got a shot to push for the number one running back overall this season. And nothing else really. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts, all great. Jalen Hurts looked rusty, turned the ball over 3 times, but I think better days are ahead for him in general in this offense as well. And they honestly put up 30-plus points without even looking good, and I think there's a really high ceiling here for Philadelphia going forward, so I'm excited about their offense. Next, we've got the Panthers at the Saints. The Panthers, they're the worst team in the NFL. I think Deontay's probably the only Panther even worth considering in lineups going forward until we see otherwise. He had a 35% target share prior to being pulled, so I know it didn't work out. He had 2 catches for 19 yards, but he is the clear wide receiver 1 in this offense unless something else breaks out. So I think Deontay's the guy you're looking for. It's just obviously Bryce Young sucks, and it's going to be really tough, so I'm not sure what's going to happen there. I don't really see a world where they pull Bryce Young for Andy Dalton at any point or anything like that. So you're just going to have to hope that Bryce Young progresses over the course of the season. But Chuba and Sanders were annoyingly splitting touches. I don't trust any of that, and that's really bad offense. So it's Deontay or bust for the Panthers, and even that's a little risky. Alvin Kamara, he's going to dominate touches, looked fantastic until they had to pull him out because they were just winning by too much. One of the top running backs this week. He's going to be a really good steal in drafts so far, or going forward. Don't panic about Chris Olave. The Saints just didn't have to pass the ball very much after the first quarter. Olave happened to not get it done in that first quarter. You saw Rashid Shaheed catch the big touchdown. Olave's going to be fine in games where the Saints are not winning, and I still don't think the Saints are going to be a dominant team this year. They'll probably lose more games than they'll win. There'll be plenty of passing opportunities for the Saints going forward. And then Rashid Shaheed, nice weekly flex option. You saw the upside here with a deep touchdown this week. You're going to need that every single week for him to pan out, but solid guy you can throw into your lineup if you need a little bit of a boost. Next, for the Vikings at the Saints, Sam Darnold actually played really well for the Vikings. I think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic here. Justin Jefferson, he's going to be fine. Had a decent game. The Vikings really just were winning the whole time. Didn't need to lean on their passing game very much. I don't think they'll be as competitive going forward. They play the 49ers next week. The Vikings will need to pass more than they did this week. So Jefferson will be really solid. Jordan Addison got banged up. I don't think that I'm going to be super confident starting him going forward unless they got really great matchups. So really it's going to be Jefferson and Aaron Jones being the only Vikings that I want to start. Jones looked fantastic, so as long as he's healthy, I think you're playing Aaron Jones. The Giants, Malik Neighbors, he should keep being started, but I really don't think it's going to be very easy for him to break out if Daniel Jones keeps playing this poorly. Funny stat, since he's signed his extension, he's thrown more pick sixes than touchdown passes, so that's great if you're a Giants fan. Really sorry about that, but I don't know if he's going to get better quarterback play, so that is a concern, but I think Neighbors is a talented enough player that he's still going to be okay. He put up decent numbers, all things considered, how bad the quarterback play was, and if you get anything respectable at all out of Daniel Jones, Malik Neighbors should be a beast, so he's fine there, and then outside of that, nobody else other than Devin Singletary worth even talking about. Singletary did get most of the work in the offense. He is effectively a 3-down back for this team. Tyrone Tracy looked bad. Eric Gray looked bad. And Singletary's the only running back they have, and I think if you really need to play a low-end running back too, Singletary is an option, but don't expect any sort of week-winning performances out of him. This offense just isn't good enough to give that to you. Next, we've got the Patriots at the Bengals, and this one was a huge surprise here with the Patriots going into Cincinnati and beating the Bengals here. For the Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson, the clear leader of the backfield here, one of the best running backs on the week, 30-plus touches, had over 100 rushing yards. He looked really solid. He's going to be involved in the passing game as well. I think he's going to be a really solid high-end running back too, to be completely honest, although I will say, still don't think the Patriots are going to win a lot of games. They're not going to be able to give him 30 carries like that very often, but it's nice to know that they're willing to do that if they're winning, and then we know Ramondre can be utilized as a pass catcher as well, so I think that's totally fine here for Ramondre. Outside of him, though, no other Patriot is really worth starting. They had less than 150 passing yards. No receiver really stood out. I believe Tyquan Thornton led the team in targets. He's not a name we were looking at going into the season. Just not really excited about anybody in that passing offense, so I think it's Ramondre or bust in New England. For the Bengals, geez, they looked really bad. It's the second year in a row they've started the season really bad, and it's honestly been quite some time since Burrow looked like Joe Burrow. For the Bengals, though, Zach Moss, he's the RB1, got the goal line work, he got more touches than Chase Brown. He's the guy that you want in the Bengals backfield, so if you're going to start a Bengals running back, it is Zach Moss going forward. Jamar Chase, he's going to remain an auto start. I know it was a rough week here, but Jamar Chase should still be the clear wide receiver 1 in what should be a good offense, so let's not panic there. You're still playing Jamar Chase. But outside of that, I think I'm going to be scared to start Burrow or T. Higgins until I see continued success here. Burrow just hasn't looked good for a while. I'm going to need a really plus matchup to feel confident in it. And then Higgins, he's going to be the number 2 option in what doesn't look like a very good offense right now. So A little concerning if when Higgins comes back, I'm going to need to see him put up a good game before I trust him there. So a little bit scary if you're a Bengals fan here. I think there's the possibility for things to go south really quick here. Next, we've got the Steelers at the Falcons, and geez, the Steelers just have a really awesome defense. I just want to highlight that because I know a lot of you guys as Falcons fans or managers of Falcon players, they're probably going to be a little frustrated about the fantasy performance, but let's just highlight the Steelers do have a dominant defense. There's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about better days going forward for the Falcons. That being said, for the Steelers, Najee dominated touches. I know it didn't turn into a lot of fantasy points, but 20 carries, got goal line touches. The Steelers just didn't score a touchdown, and Najee's generally going to be a touchdown-dependent running back play. Should catch a few more passes going forward as well, but I think Najee's going to be totally fine. He gets a matchup next week against Denver, who just absolutely got shredded by Kenneth Walker. Najee Harris could be in line for a big bounce back in week 2. George Pickens dominated targets here. He was the only wide receiver even really receiving anything north of like 2 targets in this offense. He's going to dominate target share. He's a really good player. I think good days are ahead for George Pickens, even if the Steelers' offense isn't that great. Justin Fields could be a solid streaming option if he remains the starter. Obviously, the Steelers didn't score touchdowns, so he wasn't that great for fantasy here, but had 50-plus rushing yards, looked okay, completed a high percentage of his passes, really managed the game. I think Fields will be okay if he remains the starter. You could certainly use him as like a deeper league streamer, as someone that in a really plus matchup you could look at as a decent option. The Falcons, just to be cut and dry with it, they looked awful. Kirk Cousins was completely immobile and wasn't really able to put anything into his passes, and it really did reflect poorly when you're playing up against the Steelers' defensive line that is one of the more dominant matchups. So a tough matchup for Kirk Cousins in his first game here with a new offensive coordinator, new head coach in the system here. A lot of moving parts here for Atlanta, so it's not shocking that it didn't completely land in week 1, but Bijan on the bright side had elite usage here. He's going to be a must start and could push for the running back 1 overall over the course of the season. Obviously didn't score a touchdown, but super involved in the passing game, over 100 total yards. Bijan's a must start going forward. Drake London should still be started, but I am a little bit wary of it just because, like, if Kirk Cousins is actually really bad, we could look at him being right back into the same territory he was last year, where he's a talented wide receiver without a quarterback. So that's obviously scary. And then Kyle Pitts scored a touchdown, wasn't really that involved otherwise. He can remain in lineups because tight ends suck, so you got to play him, but nothing really conclusive there. Next, we've got the Texans at the Colts, and this one was super fun here. The Texans are going to be legit. Mixon was a workhorse running back, had 30-plus carries, over 125 rushing yards. He could easily be a steal in drafts because they really didn't want to give the ball to anyone else, and he actually looked pretty good. So I think Joe Mixon could be a big steal in drafts here. Sneak peek to the trade video, sell high on Stephon Diggs. He had 2 touchdowns this week, so obviously he had a really great fantasy performance, but Nico Collins and Tank Dell each had over 100 air yards, and Stephon Diggs had 9 on 6 targets. So basically, they're only throwing the ball to Stephon Diggs at the line of scrimmage. It looks to me like he's not a guy that's getting open downfield. I think you're really going to need him to score touchdowns to put up big games, and obviously he scored 2 this week, so he looks great. But anybody looking beyond the box score is going to see that I don't think he's a guy that you really want to rely on a weekly basis. So I would look elsewhere than Stephon Diggs here. At least to try to trade him. You can still start Stephon Diggs, but I don't think the ceiling is going to be there like it was this week. For the Colts, Anthony Richardson, he's going to be a must start every single week. He only completed 9 of 19 passes, and he still ended up putting up 3 total touchdowns, ran for over 50 yards. He throws the ball downfield, and he made one of the most insane throws I've ever seen. He was kind of had a man in his face, leaning to his left, and just chucked it 60 yards, threw a dime to Alec Pierce. Really talented player. I know there's a lot of things that he needs to put together, and he obviously missed a couple of home run balls. He could have had an even more monster game if he just hit Adonai Mitchell in a couple of plays. So Richardson, he's a must start. He's going to be some ups and downs. He's going to not look great, but the athleticism's there. You're playing him until he gets hurt. Jonathan Taylor, he's going to remain in your lineup for sure. Did score a touchdown this week. I know he was a little bit underwhelming. Didn't get a target, but he did have elite usage here. The only running back in the offense that gets the ball here. So JT, he's an auto start going forward. And then the pass catchers are going to be a little bit tricky in Indy here. I know the Colts only completed 9 passes this last week, so it's tough to really get a huge read. Michael Pittman did technically lead the NFL in target share this last week. I know it didn't turn into a lot of fantasy points, but that's tough to do when you only have 9 completions to go around. So Pittman, you're going to hope that the Colts are a little bit more up-tempo, hope for more passing volume going forward, which is possible. Don't panic about Pittman, but I think it's going to be tough for Pittman to necessarily return value where he was being drafted, although I do still think he's a solid wide receiver 3. Next, we've got the Cardinals at the Bills here. For the Cardinals, Marvin Harrison came out with a dud, 1 catch for 4 yards. The Bills do have a really good defense against the pass here. Marvin Harrison was wide open on what could have been a 50-yard touchdown if Kyler just saw him and threw the ball. So it's possible that, it was possible out there that Marvin Harrison could have had a much better game. Still a little bit concerning here, but nothing to necessarily panic about here. I think you're still playing Marvin Harrison going forward, and just hope that it was a week one bad performance for a rookie. Hopefully things bounce back for the Cardinals against the Rams, who are not a great passing defense at all. Outside of that, for the Cardinals, James Conner and Kyler, they were solid. They're going to remain in your lineup. McBride, 5 catches for 30 yards. Not great, but you're still playing him. He's good. The tight end position just sucked this week. Don't panic about that. For the Bills, Josh Allen, he's a stud, 3 total touchdowns. Did it all without really having a clear number one wide receiver either. So Josh Allen, he's going to be just fine. James Cook actually did get some work inside the 5 yard line, so that's really promising. Didn't turn into a monster fantasy game, but he was just fine. Had 20 touches again, or 20 catches, 20 rushes again. Had a couple receptions as well. He's a guy that you're definitely starting every single week. Still unclear who the pass catchers are going to be in Buffalo. Keon Coleman had a 20% target share, so that's promising, but Khalil Shakir did a lot with his limited opportunities. Dalton Kincaid did absolutely nothing. I still think I would rank them here. Kincaid's probably still the guy I'm playing. I'm not giving up on Dalton Kincaid after 1 week. Coleman, probably the wide receiver I want to own, but Khalil Shakir looked good as well. I think it's just probably not Curtis Samuel would be my really only conclusive evidence here after this week. Moving on to one of the grossest games this week, we had the Titans in Chicago against the Bears. The Titans looked awful, really couldn't move the ball very effectively. Will Levis played an awful game, and that's why they lost here after being up 17-0. Tony Pollard, though, the clear lead running back here, had 18 carries compared to Tyjae Spears' 4. They each had 4 targets, so Pollard's the clear lead back here. I think he can be considered as a low-end RB2, if not higher, going forward. Really, the only wide receiver really worth considering in the lineups here, caught 3 passes for 50 yards. Given how bad the production was in this offense in general, that's pretty good, but you're going to need the Titans to be better if you want to rely on him going forward. For the Bears, they looked even worse here. Caleb Williams had less than 100 passing yards on over 25 attempts. That is absolutely atrocious. DJ Moore is the only player you can consider starting in Chicago until you see better things out of this offense. Next, we got the Jaguars at the Dolphins. Kind of a slow start here. The Jaguars got up early, and the Dolphins really didn't score until like late in the second quarter. For the Jaguars, Evan Ingram was uninvolved, had 1 catch. Christian Kirk was the number 3 wide receiver in terms of snaps, playing behind both Brian Thomas and Gabe Davis. That's a little bit concerning. Sorry about that. Tank Bigsby, he was involved though. Did have 12 carries for 72 yards. Honestly, looked better than Travis Etienne, who fumbled the ball near the goal line. Kind of arguably cost the Jaguars the game here. I wouldn't be super concerned about it, but I don't think we're going to see a situation where Etienne has that clear workhorse role like he did last season. So I don't think the possibility of Etienne being like a top 5 running back is really there this season. I think you're looking at more of like a fringe top 10 kind of guy. And Bigsby absolutely should be a popular waiver ad this week. Devon Achane, he's a stud, had a 20% target share along with a 47% rush share, so that is elite usage for this running back. He's obviously a fantastic player. Did get banged up, was marked as a DNP in their simulated practice this week. Remember, the Dolphins play on Thursday, so we'll see if he gets out there. Jeff Wilson was annoyingly involved, but it's also because Raheem Mostert got banged up in this one as well. So both Mostert and Achane got hurt. You could potentially see a Jeff Wilson and Jalen Wright backfield in week 2. Keep that in mind, but in general, the Dolphins are going to be really good on offense. Tyreek Hill put up a monster game. Jalen Waddle did. It's going to be more of the same for the Dolphins going forward. You're going to need these guys to stay healthy if they want to put up points, but they will keep putting up a lot of points regardless of who's out there. Next, we got the Broncos at the Seahawks, and oh boy, Bo Nix looked absolutely awful. He just couldn't throw the ball downfield. He was 5 of 19 on passes more than 5 yards downfield. Had 2 interceptions on those passes as well. Could have had like 4 or 5 interceptions. Just really didn't look like he saw the field very well. And not going to bury him. It's his first game ever as a rookie. Not going to necessarily throw him out there, but not a great start. You're hoping he'll bounce back, but he plays the Steelers in week 2, so I doubt he will. Beyond that, though, the Broncos running backs, they're going to catch a ton of passes. This is an offense that really wants to throw the ball down to the running backs, and I think Jaleel McLaughlin's going to be the running back we want to own here. Javonte didn't look great. Neither did McLaughlin, to be honest, but he had a lot of targets. I believe he caught 6 passes in this one, and it's going to make him usable, especially as the Broncos probably have to play from behind. Their defense kept them in it for a little bit longer than you would have expected. If the Broncos get themselves into some hurry-up, really garbage time situations, I think you could see Jaleel McLaughlin kind of eat and put up a lot of garbage points because the Broncos are not going to be a very good team this year. No Broncos wide receiver is worth anything. Bo Nix looks awful. Sutton's the wide receiver 1, I guess, but Josh Reynolds was involved. Vele was involved. I don't like any of it. You can roster Sutton, and that's probably about it, but there's no way I'm starting him. For the Seahawks, Kenneth Walker, he's a beast. Keep starting him, although he did suffer an abdomen injury. Keep an eye on that. If Charbonnet is available on your waiver wire, he should be added, and hopefully Ken Walker just stays healthy and keeps playing because he's obviously really talented, and this could be a bit of a breakout year for him. DK, he should be fine. It was just sort of shadowed by Patrick Surtain all day. I'm not worried about that. obviously rough matchup, rough week 1 here, but don't panic about that. He should be okay. JSN season probably not happening here. Tyler Lockett looked good, led the team in receiving. JSN continues to not be utilized very much in this offense. It's probably DK, Lockett, and then JSN in this offense. So JSN, keep him on your bench, but I'm not trusting him in my starting lineup just yet at all. Next, we got the Raiders at the Chargers. The Raiders are bad. This is not breaking news, though. Alexander Mattison did outsnap Zamir White. That is absolutely notable. Alexander Mattison was the running back you would have wanted to start here. He was utilized in the passing game a lot more. Honestly, looked better than Zamir White as well, who fumbled in this one. I'm probably benching them both. They should both be rostered, and I want to see things shape out a little bit more there. But there's no way I'm trusting Zamir White or Madison in my lineups at all until I just know more. And that's a really rough situation for anybody who drafted White. Devontae Adams, he's still fine. You're playing him. Just understand that, of course, this is not a very good offense. I was worried about this going into the season, and I think we're going to see a lot of just struggles for this Raiders offense here. Brock Bowers was involved, 6 catches for 58 yards. That's pretty great for a rookie tight end in his first game ever, so that's something to be positive about for the Raiders going forward. Nothing else to really report there, though. For the Chargers, J.K. Dobbins seems to be the RB1 here, had 10 carries for 135 yards. Really just happy for him. Gus Edwards didn't look great. Hopefully J.K. Dobbins can stay healthy and play out the whole rest of the season and continue to look good. So rooting for Dobbins. I think he is the RB1. He's a guy you can consider starting going forward, and he's someone that hopefully just works out over the rest of the year. And then beyond that, Ladd McConkey, he's the wide receiver you want in LA. Quentin Johnson had a drop again, looked bad. Joshua Palmer was mediocre again, got ejected in this game for fighting as well. McConkey is the wide receiver 1 here. Scored a touchdown. He's a good player. I think he's the only guy in this offense outside of Dobbins that you really want to consider starting. Next, we got the Cowboys at the Browns. The Cowboys, they're legit. Their defense was awesome. They were playing great on offense until they didn't need to. Zeke, he's the RB1 here. Did score a touchdown. Got the first snaps. Actually hurdled a guy in the first play of the game, which was pretty funny, watching him be somewhat athletic. Dowdle was involved as well here, too. It's tough to get a huge read on this game because it was such a blowout, but I do think Zeke is the running back that we want to play if we have to play one of them. CD, he's going to be great. They used him on end-arounds quite a bit as well. That might be how they're going to try and spice up the running game, and he was eating really well until they just didn't need to throw the ball anymore. Brandon Cooks scored a touchdown in this one. He's the clear wide receiver 2 here, and with the injury to Jake Ferguson, it does absolutely raise the ceiling here for Brandon Cooks. I think he should absolutely be added off of waiver wires if he's available. The Browns, they're awful. Deshaun Watson's lost. The pass catchers just aren't going to be able to succeed. Deshaun Watson keeps playing like that, so that's a huge bust. You're really just kind of hoping that Jameis Winston gets to go and start for this team if you're a Brown receiver owner, or even if you're a Browns fan. I hope everyone can just kind of see that Winston is the better option for them going forward. Jerome Ford, he's a volume play at running back here. You can still use him. He's going to be checked. The ball's going to get checked down to him. He'll get a lot of carries. I think you can play him, but nothing super sexy there. David Njoku was playing okay until he got hurt. Looks like a high ankle sprain, probably going to miss several weeks here. That's a huge bummer. Hopefully he can get back soon, but you're going to need a new tight end for at least a couple weeks if you have Njoku. And then I'm going to have a hard time starting Amari Cooper as well. Really struggled in this one, mostly due to Deshaun Watson, but he did drop what should have been a touchdown in this game. I don't think I really want to start any Brown that's not named Jerome Ford until I see something better out of this offense. So really rough. You have a lot of Browns exposure, but hopefully you don't. Next, we got the Commanders at the Bucks here. Jaden Daniels going to be good for fantasy, but not for his wide receivers, I don't think. Just really struggled to throw the ball downfield. Obviously ran the ball for a ton of yardage, had 2 rushing touchdowns, so really great for fantasy if you manage to play him, but rough for any of the pass catchers here. Nobody really got the job done from a pass catching standpoint here. Terry McLaurin, only 2 catches in this one. That's really disappointing against what should have been a really soft matchup against the Buccaneers, so I'm going to have a hard time trusting Terry McLaurin going forward until I see maybe a little bit better performance, because the matchup's not going to get much better than it will against the Buccaneers. Brian Robinson, he's the clear running back to own in Washington. Eckler's effectively just a handcuff here, so B-Rob, he's great. He's a guy you can start as a low-end RB2 going forward. Rachaad White for the Bucs, still really solid, got the job done, looked good, but Bucky Irving was more involved than any of the other running backs were last season, so I think you're going to see a bit of a tick down for Rachaad White this season compared to last, but Rachaad White's still probably a fringe top 12 kind of guy going forward. Mike Evans, he's a stud, 2 touchdowns. Keep playing Mike Evans. The schedule just keeps getting easier over the next 3 weeks. So love Mike Evans, and also love Chris Godwin here. He looked great. Was the leading receiver for this team. Scored a touchdown. You're playing Evans and Godwin until something changes here. Next, we've got the Rams at the Lions, and it was a really fun Sunday Night Football game. We got our first overtime matchup of Week 1, or of the NFL season, really. Starting things off with the Rams, so much for Blake Corum here. Kyren Williams had a 91% snap share here and returned punts. Kyren Williams is the workhorse. He's going to be a top 5 back probably this season. Cooper Kupp, He's back, tied his career high in receptions in this one. A lot of that due to the Puka Nacua injury. That sucks. He's now on IR. He's going to miss at least 4 weeks, so that obviously sucks here. But Cooper Kupp going to be a monster. You're going to keep starting him, and he could easily be one of the steals of drafts this season. So the Lions, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, they're both going to eat here. They're both really good players, really good offense. Plenty of upside for both those guys. I think you can start both of them going forward. Jameson Williams had a breakout here, had a career high in yardage, scored a long touchdown. Uh, it's tough because if he does truly break out here, I do have a hard time believing that he, Laporta, and Amon-Ra can all end up performing at a high level on a weekly basis to go along with these two running backs that are also going to be involved. So we saw it yesterday. Both running backs scored touchdowns. Jameson Williams scored a touchdown. Laporta and Amon-Ra were both really disappointing. So don't panic. I think Amon-Ra and Laporta are still super involved in this offense. They're really great players. They're going to be fine, but I do think that if Jameson Williams does break out, there's just a lot of mouths to feed here in this offense, and it might be tough for any of these guys to really return like Amon-Ra is going to have a tough time being the wide receiver 1 overall if Jameson Williams is this good. Laporta, same thing about being the tight end 1 overall, even though the tight ends all sucked this week, so he was actually fine. But just a little bit concerning here, but overall for the Lions, they look great. I think they're going to be really good again this year. And last, we've got the Jets at the 49ers. The Jets just really didn't look good here. They couldn't really move the ball very effectively. Garrett Wilson was the only receiver that could get open. Rodgers looked okay, not great. And I just don't think that this Jets offense is going to be a whole lot better than it really was last season. I mean, okay, obviously it'll be better than it was last season, but I don't think we're going to see them be a top 10 offense by any means. They're going to have to lean on their defense, and their defense let them down as well here. So not super excited about the Jets prospects going forward, but Brees, he's a workhorse. Still got it done for fantasy. You're obviously starting him every single week. And then Garrett Wilson, he's going to be hyper-targeted, so we got to trust him. No other Jet is really worth looking at, though, going forward. The Niners, Christian McCaffrey was a surprise inactive, announced like 2 hours before the game kicked off, and they really didn't miss a beat. Jordan Mason went out there and performed extremely well. He's likely going to be the starter for the Niners again in week 2, so if he's available on waivers, he is the priority waiver ad. Who knows how long CMC is going to be out? As long as he's out, Jordan Mason is going to be a top 5 play at the running back position, honestly. Outside of that for the Niners, Debo, he's the clear Niners wide receiver 1. You got to love him going forward. Kittle and Ayuk, they'll be fine. Obviously a bit disappointing for those guys this week, but it's just tough for all those guys to eat in this offense. You're still starting them. And then Juwan Jennings was surprisingly involved. If you want to make like a deep league waiver wire ad, I think Jennings could be decent, but it's going to be tough for him to eat, especially in this offense with how many mouths there are to feed. So that'll do it for the Week 1 recap here. Up next, I'll be going over waiver wire ads. I'll go over each of the 4 positions, go over which guys should be added to your rosters after Week 1, and just note that Week 1 is normally the most important week for waivers. We will learn the most in terms of what's going to be different compared to our expectations after Week 1, so stay tuned for that video. Hopefully we can get you guys some ads and really help retool your teams after Week 1, and hopefully it's going to be a lot of fun going forward. So hopefully you guys got off to a hot start. Hopefully you're 1-0. If you didn't, plenty of time left. You're going to be totally okay. Let's just keep grinding to make sure we get better and better. So yeah, there'll be 4 to 5 videos every week along with a live stream. So stay tuned for all those. Just love to add you guys to the community here. So if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do that. We can get access to all this content for free. If you made it this far in the video, please do give it a thumbs up as well. I really put a lot of time into it every single week, and just helps me out quite a bit. So yeah, appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you with the next one. Peace. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.